You're listening to The Implanted Word with Pastor Bill Gem of Grace Church in Amarillo, Texas.
The Implanted Word, your word in me.
Can you get ripped off if you trust God and work hard? When it was your boss that ripped you off? When it was your husband that ripped you off? When it was your children that ripped you off? When it was your pastor that ripped you off? When it was a missionary you trusted? But I'm just saying, in the light of eternity, can you get ripped off if you trust God and work hard? No, you can't.
When you trust God and work hard, it's impossible for you to get ripped off. In the light of eternity, no matter what happens in this life, you're blessed. People and circumstances won't always be ideal, but with God, your eternity is secure. In today's message, Pastor Bill reminds you to keep your focus on the future that awaits you. If your focus is on earthly matters and your hope is in this life, you'll be disappointed and feel ripped off. But God is your gauge for success and will never rip you off. Now here's Pastor Bill in the book of Genesis chapter 30 as he continues his message, Formula for Success. Trust God, work hard.
I turn from my ways into your love. Humble myself and accept your word. Your word planted in me is able to save my soul. Your word in me, the implanted word. Your word in me, the implanted word.
Here it is. Here's the sermon. The formula for success. Trust God, work hard. Any questions? Trust Jesus. Now you be faithful. Any questions? But it's really hard to learn that, right? Because we want to trust God and do nothing. Well, guess what? You're still blessed, but you ain't got much fruit today. Or we want to do everything in our flesh and you're not trusting God at all, and you're just going to end up frustrated. Genesis chapter 30, verse 22. It's Jacob. We've learned all this stuff about Jacob. He's the heel grabber. He's the con man. He's the deceiver, and he deceived his dad. He's learning all his lessons from his father-in-law, Laban. Remember, he said, I'll work 7 years for Rachel. And he got Leah. And then he got Rachel. Then he had to work another 7 years. So he has to work 14 years. The deceiver got taken by the big deceiver. Uncle Laban, who's now father-in-law Laban, he really knows. But Jacob's learning he's already blessed. You got to know he was blessed before he was born. He was blessed before he tried to get the blessing, but he was already blessed. And in a way, he can't mess up the blessing. Can I hear an amen on that? Amen. In a way, he can't mess up the blessing because you're blessed. But you can mess it up for the next 14 years or the rest of your life here on earth, but you're already blessed. I know that's a hard concept to get, but it's true. Amen? Amen? But if you're blessed and now you work hard, a lot of good things can happen. A lot of good things. And we saw, even though he's got 2 wives and 2 concubines, 2 servants with the wives, he's still blessed. Well, how do you know he's blessed? He's got 11 sons. They're the future tribes of Israel. The man is blessed. Even when he doesn't say a word in chapter 13 or chapter 30, except, what do you want me to do about that, having a baby? What do you want me to do about it? I can't help. He doesn't say a word. And then finally, after Rachel, let me pick up verse 22. Then God remembered Rachel. God listened to her, opened her womb. She conceived, bore a son, and said, God has taken away my reproach. So she named him Joseph and said, the Lord shall add to me another son. I want more. And you remember how much Jacob loved Joseph. And that's where we left off last week. So the next verse, here we are, verse 25. And it came to pass when Rachel had borne Joseph that Jacob said to Laban. So now Jacob's taken center stage again. We haven't seen him very much in this chapter at all. He came to, said to Laban, Send me away that I might go to my own place, to my own country. That's his desire. Send me away that I might go to my own place and to my own country. Give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served you, and let me go, for I know my service which I've done for you. I've worked for you for 14 years. I've paid my debt for my 2 wives. You trickster, double con man. He basically worked for 14 years for nothing. In another sense, he worked for 14 years for 2 wives and 11 sons and a daughter. And now he wants to go home. I mean, now watch this. He already knows he's blessed, not because of just what his grandfather told him and what his dad told him, but what God told him at Bethel. That was 14 years ago. But Jacob knows, no, I heard the voice of God and God told me. And so 14 years later, guess what? He trusted God at Bethel. And even though he messed up, or did Laban mess up? Well, whatever it is, he worked hard for 14 years. When you get taken on a bad deal, you still be faithful to it. You got a mean boss, you still work hard. You got a story that doesn't make sense, you still do your part. You got a husband drives you crazy, you be the faithful wife. You got a wife that never talks to you, you be the faithful husband. You're already blessed. Act that way. And whatever you want to know about Jacob, I'll tell you what, he's starting to learn his lessons. And he trusted God and he works hard. Even though he was ripped off. And you talk about ripped off, 7 years. He agreed to 7, but the extra 7, so he fulfills his contract. Right? So what's he say? I want to go home with my wives and my kids. I want to go home. That's his desire. Amen? You say, I'm in a bad deal. Well, work hard. Well, I don't want to. Well, then we got to start the sermon all over again. You're already blessed. Now be faithful. We're only in this life for a short time. You're only in your job, your marriage, whatever, for a short time. Verse 25. Let me go, for I know my service which I've done for you. And he knew, I've worked hard. And Laban said to him, please stay if I found favor in your eyes. For I've learned by experience, that word experience is also divination. I've learned by divination, by experience, that the Lord has blessed me for your sake. And then he said, name me your wages and I will give it. Hey, Laban figured out, you know what, my flocks grow more, my life goes better. Somehow with this guy named Jacob here, somehow my life is better. He's somehow a believer, blessed by God. Somehow he works hard. I want him to stay. I don't want him to go home. Please stay with me. I've noticed I'm doing better because you're just here. Welcome to Israel. I mean, you've already got Israel born. The name hasn't been changed yet. Welcome every time you pray for Israel. Welcome every time you see the flag of Israel out here in the mall there. Welcome. I'm telling you, you just agree with God about Israel and you'll just go better. It'll just go better. Does that mean they're perfect people? No, it does not mean they're perfect people. But you would be wise because God started in Genesis chapter 12, way back. Those who bless you, I will bless. And here's Laban, who is not a believer. And somehow even through divination, he can tell you know what? I'm just better when you're around. There's something about you, and there's something about the way you do your job. Please stay here. Name your price, whatever you want for wages. Now, right away, you got to know that Jacob takes a deep breath, going like, yeah, that's what you told me 14 years ago, and then 7 years ago, the old swapperoo. I mean, he's got a lot of sermons he could bring up, but name me your wages and I will give it. Verse 29. By the way, that's a compliment from his father-in-law, technically his boss at this point. I will give it. So Jacob said to him, you know how I've served you. You know how I've served you 14 years and how your livestock has been with me. Your livestock's been with me. For what you had before I came was a little, and it has increased to a great amount. The Lord has blessed you since my coming. And now, when shall I provide for my own house? So he said, well, what shall I give you? That was Jacob's reply. You're right. When I came, you had a little, but I worked hard and you got blessed. I want to take my family home now. So they're negotiating a deal. Okay, that's what's actually happening here. Okay, they're negotiating a deal. And so Laban comes, well, what do you want? What shall I give you? Verse 31, Jacob said, you shall not give me anything. Now I want to be very accurate on this now. I want to get right down specifics. I've been going over the contract we had 14 years ago, and then the new contract that you slipped under the door somehow 7 years ago. So that one's done. So you want to start giving me stuff? I don't want you to give me anything. I want to make sure I'm very clear about the new contract. If you want me to stay, then here's the deal. So he's just being very, very specific. Are you tracking with me? Okay? Notice what he says. You'll not give me anything if you will do this thing for me. Okay, I got one thing you can do. I will again feed and keep your flocks. Here's the deal. Let me, Jacob, pass through all your flock today, removing from there all the speckled and spotted sheep, and all the brown ones amongst the lambs, and the spotted and speckled amongst the goats. And these shall be my wages. So my righteousness, see what he's doing, he's actually trusting God here. He says, my righteousness will answer for me in time to come, when the subject of my wages comes before you. Everyone that is not speckled and spotted amongst the goats and brown amongst the lambs will be considered stolen if it's with me. I want you to stay with me, Jacob. Stay with me, please. My life is so much better, my herds, and stay. Just name your price. How about this deal, Uncle Laban? How about if we go through all the flocks right now, and all of the sheep, all of the lambs, all the goats that aren't like normal. They're speckled, they're spotted, they're striped. You know, that's not normal. Most sheep are like all white. And most of the goats are like all black or all brown. But then he goes a step further. He says, okay, here's what I want to do. I want to remove all the speckled and spotted and striped. I want to get them away from all the ones that aren't speckled and spotted. And so the ones that are multicolored, the ones that are spotted, those are mine. So that when this story all ends, you can't come back and say, you stole from me. When my wages actually add up, I've only got the speckled, spotted, and striped ones. And all the others are yours. Now, if you're a businessman, you know, Laban's already thinking, this is going my way. This is going my way. Because almost all of them end up normal, and only the weirdos end up over here, you know, different colors, speckled and spotted. But then Jacob goes one step further, just to make sure we will separate all the speckled and spotted ones from all the other ones, so that at the get-go, we've already, these are mine and those are yours. Well, if you know anything about husbandry, you know, breeding dogs or cats, well, if you take two white poodles, you're probably going to get a white poodle. If you take two black Dobermans, you're probably going to get a black Doberman. If you remove all the speckled and spotted, well, that just increases the odds that what you're going to have left over, it looks like Jacob doesn't know what he's doing. Unless you trust God and you work hard. Uncle Laban's doing the math. And he's thinking, this is one great deal for me. Jacob's doing the math. I'm going to trust God, and I'm going to work hard. By the way, can you trust God for stuff that looks stupid? Jacob, you're being stupid on this. Trust God, work hard. Let God put the $5 in the field for you. Let God give you the promotion to a forklift driver. Let God find you the job after you get married. You're already blessed. Work hard. You don't have to figure out the deal. Jacob's learning that. So Uncle Laban's going like, put her there. Sign on the dotted line. That's a deal if I ever heard it. Because he's not trusting God. He's trusting everything he's ever seen before. Verse 34, Laban said, oh, that it were according to your word. In other words, you got a deal. Verse 35, please watch the Bible closely here. Please watch the Bible closely. Because Jacob just said, okay, I want to separate all those. But then Laban said, oh, that it were according to your word. So he, who's the he? The he is Laban. Laban, removed that day the male goats that were speckled and spotted, all the female goats that were speckled and spotted, every one that had some white in it, and all the brown ones amongst the lambs, and gave them into the hands of his sons. And he, Laban, put 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob. And Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flocks. You know what's a really bad deal? When it was your idea to separate them and put them over here to the side, but Uncle Laban beat you to the punch because he's not even going to give you the ones that you thought you were going to get. Did you just follow what I said? You thought when you made the deal that you were going to get the speckled and spotted and striped, but Uncle Laban beat you to it and sent his sons to get them, take them 3 days' journey before you even had a chance. Guess what? You just got ripped off again, Jacob. Or maybe not. By the way, can you get ripped off if you trust God and work hard? When it was your boss that ripped you off? When it was your husband that ripped you off? When it was your children that ripped you off? When it was your pastor that ripped you off? When it was a missionary you trusted? But I'm just saying, in the light of eternity, can you get ripped off if you trust God and work hard? No, you can't. You might not have some sheep for a couple of days. Oh, rats. Uncle Laban got the 50 speckled and spotted whatever and took them 3 days from here, and I got nothing except God, who's watching Uncle Laban, and sheep of every color, and a man that's learning how to work hard. That's the introduction to the story. Are you with me? Because what happens when your father-in-law rips you off? You get really mad. What happens when it's your Uncle Laban? I mean, he's blood for the second time in 14 years. You didn't even give me my get-go to get started with at the beginning. But Jacob is determined to trust God and to work hard and to use his brain. This is where the story gets really weird. And to be honest, we don't even really know what's happening here yet. We'll know in a minute. So, Laban's already got Jacob's sheep 3 days away, and Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flock. Verse 37, you guys with me? Verse 37. Now Jacob took for himself rods of green poplar and of the almond and the chestnut trees, peeled white strips in them. Can I hear you say white strips? So he got some branches, different kinds of branches, and he's peeling back the bark. He's making white strips in the branches, okay? And exposed the white. Can I hear you say exposed the white? Which was in the rods. And the rods which he peeled, he set before the flocks in the gutters, in the watering troughs where the flocks came to drink, so that they should conceive. They go into heat when they came to drink. So the flocks conceived before the rods that are stripped down to the white. And the flocks brought forth streaked, speckled, and spotted. Now, wait a minute. Wait a minute. What weird kind of voodoo stick something is this? It's a man doing what a man can do when he doesn't know what to do, except I'm going to trust God, and I got me these sticks. Now, guess what? Maybe Jacob knew something about husbandry that we still don't know today. But I already know where every speckled, spotted, and striped sheep came from, and lamb and goat. I already know. They came from God. What the sticks have to do with it, I don't know. Except that when he threw those stripped to the white sticks in the trough, they all said, hey, let's have kids. And then those white sheep end up having spotted little lambs. Well, that's kind of different. And the brown goats are ended up with white and speckled and streaked baby goats. And I mean, the whole thing is like, wow. And I'll prove to you in a moment, it comes from God. But here's what you don't know. Here's what you don't know. He got ripped off by Laban 14 years ago. He got duped by him again last week. His sheep, Laban took 3 days away. And he sat down and he pulled out these different sticks and he started stripping them. I made you say it. And right there in verse 37, he peeled white strips in them and exposed the white. Can I hear you say expose the white? Do you know what the word white is in the Hebrew? Laban. Laban. He exposed Laban. He stripped it down. Laban. The name Laban means white. White. And somehow Jacob, the deceiver, even though he was double deceived by the great deceiver, somehow he figured out how to outwit Whitey. Because he's just trusting God and whittling on sticks right down to the Laban. And somehow those sheep, when they came to drink and they saw, well, there's Laban. There's white. Is that what happened, or was it that God just knew how to bless a man who is trusting him when it looks like it's not going to work? And before you know it, everything that's born just about is coming out speckled, spotted, and striped. It's crazy. Then Jacob separated the lambs, verse 40, made the flocks face toward the street, and all the brown in the flock of Laban he put in his own flocks by themselves, and did not put them with Laban's flocks. So he's separating them.
The implanted word.
As our time with you today on The Implanted Word comes to an end, we'd like to remind you how much your Creator loves you. Not only did He form the universe and the planet you live on, but He knit you together as well. He knows you and has a deep affection for you, His beloved child. God never forces His love on His children, but He's offering you the chance to know Him better and spend eternity with Him. He wants to offer you the inheritance of being His child that many have already taken advantage of. Do you have more questions about this? Or are you ready to make a decision to follow God with your whole life? If so, please give us a call. We'd love to speak with you and pray with you, and we'll do our best to answer all your questions. Call us at 806-680-2820. That's 806-680-2820. We'd like to encourage you to find and begin regularly attending a local church too, one that teaches the truth of the Bible and loves as God does. In fact, if you're in the Amarillo area, we'd love to have you come visit us here at Grace Church. We meet Sundays at 9 and 11 a.m. or Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Come join Pastor Bill and all of us for a time of worship and studying the Bible, as well as time spent getting to know each other better. You'll find directions and more information at our website, theimplantedword.com. We're excited to meet you. That's all we have time for today. Join Pastor Bill next time to continue through the book of Genesis, right here on The Implanted Word.
Your word